Nothing we say is investment advice. Please pause on all 3 pages of this disclaimer and read it.
Greetings, Algo Artisans Cowboy here. It is Tuesday, 30 a.m. EST sharp, and we are taking a look at, right now, silver. So silver and gold have had quite a couple of weeks. There was a fair period of sideways action. It probably looks like the Wyckoff, if I were to pull up the Wyckoff chart. Don't know that I need to do that, but it's kind of cool. Let me see if I can find it really quick. Wyckoff. It is an accumulation chart, Wyckoff accumulation. And it is a pattern that you see quite often. And I think this one might match it pretty closely. So let me just give me a second. We're going to talk about where silver is going to go, right? We're going to talk about where that might head. So let's open this here. So take a look at this. Oops, I opened the link. Apologies, everybody. Sorry to be so damn boring at the beginning of the show. You know, usually at the beginning of the show, you got to say exciting things, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do that, and we're going to do the other. And that's true. And I did not do that, but who cares? Do you want the info or not? Right? So either way, trying to open this image. Okay, let's share this. And then I'll zoom out. You see that pattern? So you get this like move down. I don't know, my picture's blocking some of it there, but you get this move down, and you get this bottoming out right here. And then you get like a deeper, almost like a bear trap in phase C. And then you get a consolidation above, or at least at the top of the prior high. And then you get the big move up, right? And that's really what that looks like here. Not precisely as I go back to this page, but you do get that lower low right here, which is kind of cool. It's neat when these things actually sort of play out, that lower low right there. So definitely Wyckoff-ish, and that's great. In fact, you could, that's enough on the Wyckoff. So where do I think it'll go? I think there's a very obvious structural point right here at 71. You see this right here where price came up after moving down after the highs. Price moved down, and it really ground down pretty steadily until this point here, which is at 61. And then it bounced up and then headed down further. So there's a very clear structural point right there. And I do think that price is going to, it may not be able to reclaim that. There's another minor structural point on the way down if I zoom in. Whoa, where'd the arrow go? My arrow disappeared. Amazing. And I will draw to it here. There's that point right there as well. And that point is right at 67. So I would look at 67, which is this blue line right here for silver. I would look at as a next spot for price to head up, and perhaps whether it bounces off or not is the question. Now, if I look at the algos, if I zoom out a bit and take a look at the way that a lot of the data is coming out, there's a fair amount of bullishness yet left in this chart. And while price could reject at 67 and give me a possible short, I'm not sure that I would want to trade that. I haven't been touching metals right now because they had just been so sideways and hard to predict, to be honest. And they really were quiet and just not very tradable, you know, outside of some scalps, which I'll just scalp the NASDAQ if I want to scalp. There is that possibility of a short. I did not include it in last night's video because right now metals are so low, they're so bullish right now. I'd rather look for the long trade. But if you are the type of person who can predict whether or not this is going to break down, right, one could let price go to this level and then short. Now, the problem is that the trajectory of this move is such that it's probably going to happen right when the CPI comes out, right? So if I were to draw this arrow again, it might grind up. Price tends to slow down across markets right before major data, and it's probably going to just hit that. If it did continue on this trajectory, and that's a big if, it probably would hit that right at the time that CPI data came out, and then price movements are going to be a little bit less predictable than usual because the data is going to push price around. So like between now and tomorrow, all I would do is scalp. I don't know whether or not there's going to be enough volatility left in the charts to do any real swing trades at this point. I do think that if my algo's pointed towards a swing trade, I could take that trade. I just would be managing it carefully, not expecting a ton of volatility. And honestly, I feel a lot more comfortable with a long on this, as I said in last night's weekly video. So if price breaks 67, I would look for a long as the algos continue to say that things are bullish. But our big level that we're looking at where price may want to reject is that 71, that blue line. And if we zoom back out, that again is here where price had that major structural point. And if price can break above that, then that's a whole another story. I am not convinced that we're ready for the big bullish move. I could be wrong about that, but metals tend not to make new highs at this time between now and November. I don't think metals will make a high. I think we got a couple of reasons for that. One is that it just typically doesn't. It's not typical for metals to make highs at that time. Secondly, we have the election coming, and metals making highs is not a good sign for say like the administration. Metals making highs is looked at by markets and people around the world as instability, right? It's looked at as, governments are not doing their jobs. So metals are, where people are panicking into as a safe haven. So I don't know that metals are going to make a high at that time. And we'll see about it. I think there may be a time in the future, and it might not be that far off, that the paper markets and all the manipulators lose control of the metals price. That may happen. But for the moment, I think price still may be retracing from this monster move. I'm going to zoom out so we can just see it and really get a feel for what a move we saw last year. This is the weekly chart. Going back to 2025, we saw metals really make a big move, right? And if you look at the consolidation that led up to that, that consolidation goes back really to 2020. So you had metals going sideways for 4 years, more or less, right? And maybe you could say 5 years. And then you had a breakout with another consolidation here. And then you had the big move up. And things tend to make big moves and then consolidate for a long time. And we have only seen price consolidating for a few months, right? It's been pulling back. And I don't know that everybody thinks metals is going to just all of a sudden explode and go up. And we got, some strange looking British guy on his YouTube selling you his system about metal and his prediction. And even though it's like, he's not really, he's very simple. I don't want to say who he is. He wears yellow glasses. And he's like, oh, I've seen this pattern and I saw it last year. And, every time I see this pattern, it's like, okay, I'm a technical trader. What you're saying is just silly, right? I got a question from an old friend, The Unfluenced. Go check out his channel, by the way. Does some great work. Says, what was that cup and handle breakout that was talked about for a decade? Yeah, pretty much. I would say that's a fair thing to say because let's see. Cup and handle. I remember talking with you about a cup and handle. Yeah. So I need to back out. Okay. So if I look at the monthly, we could probably look at this cup and handle from Unfluenced, and we could get an idea of how this might look, right? If I go on a logarithmic scale, then we could see, is it Unfluenced? Thanks, brother. I appreciate the kind words there. Are we talking about the cup and handle going back to like the 80s, or is it a more recent cup and handle? That would be the question. There is a cup and handle. Ah, cool cat. We got all the old heads in the house. Not that you're old people, but you're old friends. Thanks for coming in, cool cat. Unfluenced. Just so you know who Unfluenced. That's what was your name on there again? Sirius. That's Sirius from the old days, cool cat. So we got the real heads on today. Yeah, I mean, this is a cup and handle if you look at it going back to the 80s. So check this out. All right, give me a second to get out the old arc. So here's the cup. If this is the one you're talking about, Unfluenced, we have to make sure that the handle, look, cup and handle has a couple of ways to be looked at. Some say that the handle needs to be 50% or less of the cup. Some say 33% or 1/3 less than the cup. So there is a technical justification that must be verified in that sense at the minimum. So you have this one here and you've got this one here. I mean, that's about 50%. That's pretty darn close. It's a little bigger than 50%. So your real sticklers might say that this can't be a cup and handle because it's greater than 50%. And if it's a cup and handle, it's not a strong one, right? So I don't know that I would use that justification right now. By the way, it's on logarithmic. So if I go to the non-log, you have from 11 to 44. So that's going to be 33. Actually, it's 11 to 50. So that's going to be like 30. I don't know. What is that? I can't think right now. 36, 37. And then from bottom here, it's $3 to 10. So that's actually, I don't know about that. I'm not sure I would call this cup and handle. This handle is really big. The handle really should be a lot smaller if that's what we're talking about. So I would be a little careful on that one. But that's on a log scale. So if we go back to A, analog, or to whatever that is, I forget what A stands for. Now there might be a different cup and handle that we could look at, but that cup and handle is technically invalid. But you know what? There's other stuff we can look at. Can I pull fibs from the top on silver? We should be at the 618. Yeah, sure. Let's go ahead back to maybe the weekly. Okay. Now, I like to pull fibs from the bottom of the impulse, right? So I would say a fair impulse for this would be from here to here. We'll look at it a couple ways, but there's a stronger impulse we can look at, right? So if you look at that as the impulse, right, the big move from 17 all the way up to 121, if we use that as our fib, as our area there, which I think is pretty fair, your 618 is right where we just bounced, right? Your 618 is going to be right at 56, which is where the bounce was. So that I think is the most accurate way to look at this. If you want to look at it as like a stronger impulse, there are some other measurements, right? So, but that's a 618 just as what I look at as the impulse is concerned. You had this, big consolidation through the 20 teens. You had the COVID crash. You had price come down and bounce and really start to make its move after mid 2022, which really kind of was, the real move started in October 7th, the whole Israel thing. That's a big point where you started to see the breakout. Price really started to go up since then, but that's that. So that's a lot of looks at silver, but if you want to do some measurements on that, if you want to look at Fibonacci extension levels, then we would look at the next targets for silver, just from a pure technical standpoint, at 150, really 149, and about 185. Those would be the next moves. But this could take a while, everybody. This could take like way longer than you think it's going to take. This could go through 2027 and not start moving. We've got all these other, people like the British guy, people are starting to bid and I've seen the signal and well, he might be right. And, okay. But I would be cautious. I take things level by level, right? I don't just look at it, oh, the signal happened and that's it. Like, no, there are a lot more considerations going on there. And I think that the market for silver may need to cool off a bit first. We might have seen the bottom, but I don't know that it's ready to run up. So that's a lot of talk on silver. And we can also take a look on gold. Let's see here. I'm going to make this a little easier for everybody to see. We did get a breakout trade here, and this is still, on, right? It did not stop out. We got a breakout. Now, remember, I didn't just willy-nilly take this trade. In fact, I didn't take it at all. And it might even be a good trade to take as of like right now. Maybe I will take a look. I would be very cautious around the data coming out, though. CPI could just ruin the whole thing. Look, this is a decent trade to take, okay? So this is a decent trade to take, just as is. It's all right. I would be pretty careful around the CPI, though, because this is going to want to grind up and to the right, but CPI could throw it off. You can get some data tomorrow that says, hey, whatever, and the markets freak out and everything sells off. Like it's, CPI is a landmine, right? All right, everybody. Well, thank you all for watching. Like I said, I know a lot of people may be tuning in to look at silver, so I will just quickly roll back to that. The main thesis here is if it can break 67, I expect it to go to 71. That's the thesis. If it can break 71, well, then we're going to be looking at what happens. What do the algos say? You have a few structural points on the way up, like 76, a key one at 78. But I'd say the key level for silver, really, if it does break 71, is going to be 89. That's a key level right there. So we'll keep an eye on it. We definitely track silver, and we track all the other things that we always track. Thanks for watching. Take a look in the description to get your free algo. I'm also doing a new series. I should start recording it today with one of our new clients who never has traded before. And so we're just going to do a free thing that I'm going to put on YouTube that's going to show brand new traders what it's like. Hey, what do you want to know? It's like a Q&A. Just let the new trader ask questions. I answer them. And then we just talk about what trading is like from that standpoint. She is a client as well with us. So, that's also very exciting. Keep an eye on that. Thanks for watching. We're going to go to the private live lab now. Come to algofactory.tech, learn how to trade like a hedge fund pro. And don't forget,
join us or die.
Just kidding. You're not going to die. We love you.